to us because we had to wait in another room that she had actually written the answers to the questions because she's not a good public speaker. However, nobody else had the knowledge of what those questions were. They were hand delivered to her by someone that was actually, in her words, harassing her to apply for the position. And that's why I asked for an investigation, because I feel it's pretty inappropriate for this district to, if you want transparency, this is not how you operate. These questions right here, this segment is directly out of the board handbook. However, the questions are not in the board handbook. If we were to publish that and use those over and over again, that's great, but these were, as far as I know, secret. You're gonna find out the question when you got there, but she had the questions already. And I feel that that was really, really, really inappropriate. And especially the fact that she complained about being harassed by one of the district's employees.
Okay, I'm not.
If I could,
oh, go ahead.
I'd like to step in just for a second. The district doesn't have a specific policy for filling vacancies, so it's all done under the law. The letter of interest is really vague. If you guys would like to implement a policy on exactly how the process would occur, you can certainly do that. It usually is included in a board handbook if you're going to add to what the law requires. An investigation into the questions being provided may result in who provided the questions, maybe, if the information is still out there, but there wouldn't be necessarily a result of that as far as there's no violation of a policy because you don't have a policy. And so I would recommend.
What about harassment?
If you wanted, excuse me?
What about harassment?
That's a civil violation of a private nature that this board doesn't have anything to do with.
Okay, well, you can have your point of view if you want. I'm looking for transparency for the district. So we need to do something to fix this.
That would be through policy to be implemented now. And so
Okay.
if you want to direct staff on bringing back something specific or form a 2-person ad hoc committee to come up with the policy or do however you guys want to handle that, but the policy would need to come back to the board.
I think the gist of this discussion, I didn't mean to cut you off or interrupt you. I think the gist of this discussion is that if we do have people interested in filling a vacant seat, we would want that process to be not only transparent, but fair and equitable for all of the people that have shown interest. And in this case, it's fairly obvious that someone was cherry-picked to fill that role or given the questions in advance so that they would be able to provide better answers than the other interested parties. So I think at least I can speak for myself, I would want each individual who has had an interest in being on the board to have a fair opportunity against the other people who may or may not be as qualified, and they can provide their answers just the same as someone else. So I think that's the gist of what this topic is about.
And I don't feel that I'm interested, a text message, I'm interested, does not qualify as a letter of intent.
Most entities have an actual application that everyone gets that has the questions beforehand that they fill out, and then the public interviews follow after that. So there isn't a letter of interest that has whatever they want in it. There aren't questions prepared that nobody's prepared to answer or that somebody might get or whatever it is. And so formulating an actual application with the questions that you know, the qualifications that you know you want in there is probably the most straightforward and streamlined way to do that.
So question, if we were to amend the policy to include a requirement that they fill out a letter of intent, perhaps there can be some questions that ask qualifying, whether they're qualified to fill the role on the initial letter of interest and or application, if you will. I don't know what else to call it. And the board can obviously have questions when they come and present themselves to the board that would not be posted or available to anybody prior to, so there's not some unfair advantage. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, and I would include in the policy a specific directive that the board is not to share their questions beforehand.
Anything like that?
That's great. I have one question. How do you figure that an employee of this district harassing somebody on company time is a civil matter?
Well, one, you're way outside the statute of limitations, and two, that person, that private person.
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm not asking you about that. I'm not talking about prosecuting somebody. I'm asking about how district employees behave when they're representing the district. That's a personnel issue, not a civil matter.
Okay, but to clarify my answer,
Thank you.
now that person, any of that conduct would be outside of any statute of limitations to this district. It is a civil private matter at this point. I agree with you that any conduct in the past that might have been harassing could be a concern, but any investigation into that now would be very latent and would not be able to legally result in any reprimand or anything by any action by this board.
Okay.
I have a question. You're asking for somebody to submit qualifications to fill a vacancy that somebody abandoned or had to vacate for whatever reason. But to be elected or appointed to the board, there are no qualifications. You simply fill out your paperwork and you're a living, breathing human being who votes in San Miguel. And I believe a non-felon. And that'll qualify you. So why should an appointee have any different requirements than somebody who's facing an election or a potential election?
So perhaps,
There actually are requirements.
What's that?
Outside of that. There are additional requirements outside of that. I mean, you have to be a resident of the district.
Right.
That's what I said.
Been over 18
You need to be in San Miguel, but if you have an appointee or a potential appointee, why would they have to express qualifications? Whereas anybody who wanted to throw their hat in the ring for an election only has a minimum amount of requirements. So it seems kind of unbalanced.
I agree with that. However, that's not how the policy is written. It says you have to submit a letter of intent or qualifications, or qualifications. Why it asks that? I don't know, because you're right. 18, breathing,
Right. In San Miguel,
and
voting.
living in the district.
yeah, I didn't mean to misspeak and say that there was like job requirements. That's not what I mean. 5 years as whatever, the garbage collector makes you qualify for this role. It doesn't. But what I'm getting at is if they're, and I don't want to say it's an application, but with their letter of intent, maybe it does just cover those basics. I'm 18, I live in San Miguel, I'm a registered voter, whatever. But it gives us some information.
Right.
And, again, perhaps we can ask some questions of interest, like, what are your goals if you become a director, something like that. And that can give us some feedback about who the person is who is submitting this letter of interest and qualifications, if you will, to be eligible to fill the role, right? But what I'm getting is that there's not really anything now that is policy mandated, or that really, there's nothing that has any statute right now. It's just doesn't exist. So for us to have transparency and equality among anyone that would be interested in serving on this board, I think that we should establish something that would be a policy moving forward.
Something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd still like an investigation to know who all was involved, whether it's actionable or not.
So I think with regard to the questions, moving forward, that having questions for this board or in future boards to be able to gauge somebody's level of interest and somebody's level of, usefulness, I guess, for the board, that's really the only way you're going to do it is through asking them questions. In a regular election, the public is able to ask them questions for months, sometimes before they vote on it and they're able to find information.
We used to have public forums for
Yeah.
the school board and the CSD board.
So I think establishing a fixed policy saying this is how we're going to do it, this is what's going to be submitted, and having some sort of a base informational page or application, whatever you want to refer to it as, would be the best way to make sure that it's done consistently and fairly for any future event.
Okay, I agree with that. Question for legal. Some public agencies, and maybe this is something that their HR departments are really more in control of, but they are very controlling over the questions that are asked in an interview setting. And obviously, the interview for someone coming into a public meeting to become appointed to a board seat is different. But they're also fairly restrictive in asking additional questions outside of what was pre-approved, if you will, so that each candidate gets the same questions. Would we as a public agency and or board of directors be restricted in any way? For example, if we had 5 set questions, would the board be able to ask additional questions about their experience or knowledge about said role or anything like that?
There's no restrictions as long as your questions don't aren't of some kind of discriminatory nature or infringe on some kind of protection, legal protection. It's pretty open.
Okay, and no requirement to ask all of the candidates the same questions?
No.
Okay.
There isn't public employment.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
Well, if they become employees of the district after they're appointed, then how does that not apply?
Well, they're not employees yet.
Yeah,
They're not
either as a candidate for a state job.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
I have to question
They're not
the
employees of the
answer.
district at all.
Huh?
Even when they're appointed, they're not. Even when they're appointed officials are not employees of the district.
We're not employees?
You are not employees.
Well, that's certainly a flip. Wow.
All right. Do we have any more board comment or questions?
Oh my.
No. Okay. Do we have any public comment?
Yeah, a quick question. Is this specifically for board members or employees for your CSD or any appointed person that you would have do something for your CSD? And the difference meaning, if you appointed somebody to do a specific duty that's not getting paid, but has the credentials and the willingness to do something, would that be different than somebody, obviously, that you want to live in the community that's going to be hired here? An example I would give is, I don't think your council lives in the CSD, yet she's your council. I was appointed by Debbie Arnold because she was the 5th district and I lived in the 5th district to the Tassau Basin Advisory Committee, the Water Resources Advisory Committee, and many other committees that dealt with the Tassau Basin. But I lived in the watershed, but I was still in the 5th district. And though I did not have a dog in the race, I was actually a better person because of my credentials, and I had the willingness to spend the time and to do things to get the job done with no pay, to spend my time and my own time. And so I don't know if there's a difference in what the discussion is or what you're actually looking for. I think it's nice that the people that serve in your community live in your community. But I also think it's nice when you're getting somebody that nobody has a qualification for, if they're willing to do something for you in any consultant type atmosphere, where they're giving you the facts and not the BS, that you have the opportunity to look at that person, and the person can stand in front of this whole board and be able to answer questions to anybody on the board, whatever the questions are, with their qualification, that's going to come back and give you what it is that you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? No.
I have one last comment. I'd like to know why our legal counsel 8 years ago told us that we were employees when we're not, as we're told today. Even when I was signing paperwork at the C.S.D. the other day, it was based on the fact that I would be an employee. And now, lo and behold, from the same legal agency that we've had, I get a completely flip-flop answer, and I'm really not happy about it.
I think you guys are W-2'd. I'd have to look into this, but I
Thank
think
you.
for
Please,
paperwork
please
purposes,
do.
you have
Let's not spend any more
W-2s.
time on it.
But you cannot be an employee of the district and be an elected official or on the board. It's a conflict of interest.
Hallelujah. But your agency told us we were employees and they gave us W-2s.
There's W.
And the W-2 came late and I had to pay extra to get my taxes amended
So,
because I was an employee.
verification. So for
Excuse
the
me.
purposes of paperwork and insurance, you guys are employees.
No, we're not. We're elected officials.
You are elected officials.
And then end of discussion.
Okay.
Let's move on.
So do we have direction to move forward?
I would move forward with finding another legal counsel.
So do we have direction on this item? Direct staff to create or write policy with our input on.
Yes, policy should change. There should be no letter of intent or qualifications. If you're 18, living in San Miguel, and you're breathing in and out, you qualify.
So how do
And
we,
breathing's really just an extra.
just a question, so how do we have interested individuals notify the district they would like to fill a vacant board seat?
A text message says, I'm interested, put my name in the hat.
You just said that wasn't sufficient.
It is, if I can be down and be sworn in if I'm 18, if I'm living in the district, and you do have to be breathing because you gotta sign your name and stuff like
I
that.
think you have to register to vote in the district too.
Huh?
I think you have to register to vote in the district.
Yes.
So do we
Some
want,
people
Yes.
have property.
Yes, that's true, that's true.
They register
So
for something.
what I would suggest is that you direct staff to bring back a proposed policy for review. Any amendment to the board handbook, it takes at least 2 meetings. So if you provide direction that we bring back a draft, then you guys can,
I'd like to do this in-house though. I don't think we need legal counsel involved in it.
legal counsel would need to be involved.
I don't think we need them. It's a pretty simple matter. We need to start cutting back on how much we use them. And this is simple, simple stuff.
I would direct staff to bring back a policy for review with the board.
We have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Of course.
4-1.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna need clarification. Do we have a second for legal counsel to not be involved in this task?
Probably not.
I'll second that.
So just for
Great.
reference, I do use legal counsel to help ensure that our policies are legally compliant.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer.
How difficult is it to say that you submit some form of communication that you qualify by being a resident? There's no need for a letter. There's no need for any letters. All you need is a
I have a
text.
comment.
I'm still speaking.
Okay, when you're done, I have a comment.
That's great. So you just need really, Scott's right. In order to run for this position, you just need to be registered to vote in the district. You need to be over 18. That's it. There's nothing else.
And not a felon.
Well, you can't register to vote if you're a felon, right?
That's probably true.
So-
Well, this is California, so maybe, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I can't tell you what it is.
I'll start somewhere.
So I think it's a simple, you just take what you have and just cut it down. Just leave some words out. You don't need a letter. You need to have the qualifications of being a registered voter in San Miguel and 18 years of age.
It's a whole board.
Simple, very simple.
So,
It's not worth $400 to change a sentence.
Director Smiley?
Yeah, it's the reason why we have legal counsel is to keep us out of the weeds and not get in trouble with the state. And there's always a purpose of that, and trying to circumvent that and say it's simple, just cut this out is, in my view, challenging because you're gonna end up in trouble with somebody. And I'll add one more thing. You have all evening been using derogatory remarks and you're angry and you're raising your voice toward counsel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I'm speaking now, okay? All right. And I object to your tone and tenor with counsel. Don't do that.
I want to say
Don't
something
do not
to
do
you.
that.
How many
Do not
times
turn
did
back
you
on
do
me.
that to me when I
Do
sat
not-
out there?
do not- do
Gentlemen,
not turn back to me.
gentlemen,
Do not turn back to me.
Yeah.
Point of order.
Thank you.
Also, I'd like to say this is the second time that he's turned his chair and got in my face, and I don't appreciate
If
that.
I look over at you,
No, you turned your whole chair around in a manner that's threatening,
I'm
which I've
sorry.
also seen on other
Then
manners in the
maybe-
service station
maybe
down
we should-
in Sinclair. Yes.
maybe we should change seats.
Well, you're welcome to change seats. I'm here.
I'm here.
Okay, so
Tonight.
if I might make a suggestion. So how about you guys work on a policy, bring it back to the board. If the board finds it acceptable, then we can have legal counsel make sure that it is acceptable from a legal perspective. So that would minimize legal time in reviewing it. And we would only have to review something that we find acceptable. We're not lawyers either, but certainly if we like what you've produced, then have legal counsel review to make sure it's fine. Does that seem reasonable to everybody?
that's fine. At some point, they do need to look at it.
I have one last comment. How many times did the previous board beat that man down when he stood here to speak? How many times? How many people seen it on the recordings? Treated him like absolute crap when he was up here speaking. Told to be quiet, sit down. Yeah, nice. That's all I got.
I'll add to that, then I got harassed by staff spouses when I was walking out.
Okay, so
And I apologize, but it does make me angry.
So I would direct staff to work on a policy to bring back to the board. If it's acceptable, then it would be reviewed by legal counsel.
I'm seconding the no review.
So, at some point, the attorney will look at it. We can certainly bring.
So you do it on a weekend.
We can certainly do a draft to the board. She will review the board packet and we'll see it. And
All right.
so, we
Fair
can
enough.
we have a motion, so we need to take a vote.
We already had consensus once, so.
Well, we had a consensus to bring a draft back and then there was a motion to not include the attorney.
Okay.
And it was seconded.
And it was seconded. So,
Should we start the process over?
If I can just, real quick, an item like this would take me 10 or 15 minutes. It's under $100, and it's gonna cost you more in staff time and board time to have to bring this back 2 times. You could easily look at it next meeting, amend whatever you need to right there, approve it as amended, with legal reviewing it. I mean, you're right, it's not difficult. Maybe 10 minutes it would take me to review it, but you're gonna spend more costs on staff and board time bringing it back in 2 meetings than you are with me taking a quick look just to make sure it's legally compliant. Just makes sense.
So if we can get that 100%, that's $100 or less, then I think you might swing the board.
Shit,
I can guarantee you right now that it's less than $100 for me to look at an item like this. I look at your agenda items every meeting, and it's really negligible, you guys.
So we do have a motion on the floor by Director Green, unless he wants to amend it, seconded by Director Davis. So that means we have a vote to move forward with, to not have legal review this policy.
I just heard that she was gonna do it no matter what because it's gonna be part of the board.
Like to
Yeah.
rescind
And
your
then we were
motion?
gonna do it, yeah, I
just have
didn't he made the motion, I think I didn't, no, I
You
seconded.
made the motion, he said.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to
So
say it?
it's you, John.
I'll rescind it.
Okay.
That's fine.
so the motion's been rescinded to not include the attorney. Just for reference, we just spent 10 minutes talking about whether or not to have the attorney.
Understood.
Let's move on.
And that's part of the problem
Do we need
too.
to amend the direction of staff?
No.
Or no?
That's fine.
And we have it down.
Okay,
Moving on.
moving on. Number 8, Integrated Waste Management Authority Special District Representative nomination, 1 candidate.
So we received notice from Mr. Hagman from IWMA notifying us that there is 1 seat available on IWMA's board of directors. That seat is through December 2028. Excuse me. So if this board can elect to nominate 1 director for that seat, if there's anybody that's interested in doing that, then they can be nominated. It doesn't have to be nominated by the board, and then they can fill out paperwork and send it in.
So it must be a board member.
It has to be a board member.
Nominate Owen Davis.
Do you accept that, Mr. Davis?
Well,
We're speaking solid waste here.
I'm on the Glasgow. How often are the meetings?
I think they were saying once a month.
Yeah.
Starting Wednesdays of each month, starting at 1:30.
Where they at?
At the Board of Supervisors Chambers on Monterey Street.
And then the last
Oh, San Luis.
same place,
Yeah, right next to Glasgow.
Same place, same room.
Yeah.
same chair.
This is a seat till 2028.
So when?
2028. Do you accept the nomination?
No, I would like to nominate Director, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I like that.
His oath of office did say BB, so everybody calls him BB, so
Yeah, yeah.
that's a little better.
I thought it was
Baby,
Beatty?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. I nominate Beatty, Director Beatty.
Do you accept that nomination?
I cannot accept that.
So we do not have to nominate anybody, but it is being brought to you in case somebody is interested in doing it.
Does anyone have any interest?
Does not sound like it.
Doesn't sound like it.
So we can take public comment, and then we can move on.
Okay. Any public comment on this item?
Oh, those guys are perfect on there.
All right.
Was that your public comment? We'll say none.
So we're gonna investigate it a whole bunch of times.
Okay, no public comment. We'll move on to item number 9,
Take a breath.
Mission Street landscape irrigation replacement.
So again, this item was requested to be brought before you guys by Director Green and Director Sangster regarding the previously approved repairs for Mission Street landscape irrigation. So the irrigation landscaping was put in 2005 by the County of San Luis Obispo under a grant. That grant was contingent on somebody taking care of it other than the county. This district, whether approved or not, signed an agreement with the county to take care of it. There's a lot of questions regarding that, but at any rate, they signed the agreement to take care of it. That was for the initial section from 12th Street to 14th Street.
The agreement goes back to 2005?
Yeah. There was an agreement as part of that grant application that we would take care of it because the county wasn't going to take care of it, but to satisfy the grant, there had to be somebody named that was going to take care of it, otherwise they weren't going to build it. So this was built in 2 different sections. First section from 12th to 14th.
I'm sorry, but can you back up just, there was a grant, and if there was nobody that was gonna take care of it, they would not have installed it?
Correct. The county was not going to take care of it. They didn't have the money then, they don't have the money now.
Okay, but, okay, so the chamber took it, the Merchants Association.
So the chamber wasn't able to take it. The district signed a letter saying that they would take care of it until somebody else came along to take care of it. So again, this was all built in 2 different sections. The first section from 12th to 14th, the second section from 12th to 11th. Then the district agreed to take care of it the first time, and then when they started building the second section, agreed to take care of it again. 2005 to roughly 2012, the district took care of it. Then the Chamber of Commerce took care of it for a while. Then the district sort of took care of it for a while to help the Chamber of Commerce. And then when the Chamber of Commerce sort of fell apart, the district took back over and has been taking care of it since then. As you can imagine, the county put it in under low bid, so they used paper pipe. And there's the first section was put in very poorly. The second section in front of the laundromat was put in much better. We've had next to no problems with that section, other than other contractors digging through things. The issue really becomes that the way the piping was installed and the type of pipe that was installed, it's all breaking due to the roots of the trees. They weren't provided any sort of guarding, so the roots grew out instead of down, which is where we're having most of the problems. The roots are growing around the pipe, breaking the pipe. Initially, we had a lot of problems with the sprinklers breaking because they stuck up out of the ground, people would kick them. Everything's been converted to drip. So the water efficiency has been mitigated. However, we are experiencing a lot of water loss due to the various breaks all over the place. The original proposal was to replace the main and then put in sidelines just to fill in where they needed to be. The original system was very elaborate, and it doesn't need to be that, especially with drip. Part of the original pushback to fixing it, other than the county should take care of it, is that we would, for the large part of this cost, was to replace sections of sidewalk that would need to be replaced or removed or replaced in order to replace them. We're not going to go in and take out all the existing piping. That's ridiculous. We're just going to dig a new line, put a new line in. Where we could bore under the sidewalks, we would do that. Some sections are too large to do that, so you would need to remove sections. We are not concrete people. Although we would do most of the piping work, we would have to contract somebody to do concrete, unless you want it to look like the 2-year-old did. We have reduced the overall number of plants out there. However, unless the board is willing to take away all the plants, we do need to water them to some extent. The plants that have been planted are drought tolerant, so we have reduced the overall watering. But during the summertime, they still fall victim to the heat in the hundreds for weeks on end. So we need to be careful about what we plant there. We can't plant anything that could hurt anybody, because then we can get sued for planting it there.
Cactus.
So I'm not sure what the board wants to do.